Hello fellow readers, today I am talking about Volume 2 in Mamare Touno's novel series Log Horizon. In Log Horizon 2, we find that our characters now are focusing very much on their homeland, their home city of Akaba. Now, if you remember in Volume 1, Shiro and his team actually traveled quite a distance from Akaba on a rescue mission. And we saw more of a scale of them trying to cope with this world that they were now finding themselves in, how they were trying to survive, and some of the really awful and immoral things that they were seeing happening. Things like groups of adventurers killing other adventurers, groups of adventurers selling non-adventurer, or what used to be non-player characters, into slavery, and it dealt with a lot of bigger issues about how things had really truly fallen apart. Now, when Shiro gets back to Akaba in this book, he realizes that the city isn't exactly falling apart in the same way that he saw over, like, on the other side when he was rescued on the rescue mission. Instead, he realizes that there's sort of more this slightly seediness that seems to be percolating, and all of these little issues that, if they're allowed to continue, could really eventually tear the city apart. And so this book deals with sort of how Shiro comes to terms with this and how Shiro creates plans and ideas to try and fix the problem. Now, Log Horizon is, again, more of a cerebral type book. It is not filled with action and, swashbuckling, monster fighting. It really isn't. Particularly in these first two volumes, this is very much about world building and also building up our main characters and their relationships to each other and how they've decided to come to terms with the world that they now find themselves living in. Again, as I said in the first video on the first book, very much a more quote-unquote realistic take on what would happen if suddenly a whole bunch of us woke up in our favorite RPG. It wouldn't just be wonderful and exciting. In fact, it could become very awful. And even once you discover the fact that you can't even commit suicide to escape, that dying just brings you right back to the game all over again, it creates a cycle of hopelessness. And I was really impressed that this particular storyline addresses that, because I think a lot of other books fail to take a look at those issues, and they fail to address the fact that human beings without laws, and when they treat the world as just a game, we don't play games the same way that we necessarily live our lives, of course. And so it was interesting to see how Shiro was trying to deal with those issues and deal with the fact that people weren't doing things that were illegal because there's no law, but at the same time trying to realize what kind of a social order can they create that is going to be beneficial for all of them down the road. I enjoy the story of Log Horizon. I enjoy the characters in Log Horizon, but I can't say I'm a huge fan of how Log Horizon is written. And again, I don't know if it is the author, I don't know if it's the translator. Of course, I haven't read it in Japanese, so I can't speak to it. But I find that Log Horizon is very much a telling type of story. I don't feel like I'm experiencing the story. I feel like there's quite a bit of plodding along, that things are repeated maybe a little bit too often, and that we get a lot of information dumps that I think could have been fit into the story in a little bit of a better way that would have made them a bit more engaging and interesting. But in general, it causes the book to feel slightly off in terms of its pacing. Again, the story itself I really like, and I really like the characters, and I really enjoy the ideas and the world that this is set in, and how characters have to manipulate both themselves and each other in order to make that world work. I really think it's clever, and I really enjoy it, but the reading itself can be sort of an up and down, off and on type experience. So those are my thoughts on Log Horizon Volume 2. Again, great story, impeded a little bit by some oddly pacing in the writing itself. Still, I would recommend checking it out, particularly if you are far more interested in the economics and political structure of this type of story as opposed to just killing monsters. If you like this video, please click on subscribe so you can check out all of my future light novel reviews. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, bye bye for now.